An entitled Karen demands that I break the rules at my job just so she can get her way with her and her stupid kids. Things got so bad that this entitled Karen literally threatened to get me in trouble as well as write a bad review about me, all because I was doing my job. Here's what happened. So I work in what is essentially a huge play place for children. There are no age restrictions except for one single room, which is limited to children under the age of 3. It also requires them to be supervised by a member of their group age 16 or older because we are just there to facilitate play and make sure everyone is being safe. We are not babysitters. Everyone, the staff included, is required to have their shoes off when they're in the room. We don't want any dirt or mud or anything being tracked into the room where lots of little kids are crawling around on the floor. Now, we deal with people being mildly annoyed over these rules on a pretty much regular basis, but typically they don't make a big thing out of it. Recently, a mom came up to the little entrance gate to the room with her 2 kids. One was younger than 3, and the other was very obviously at least 5 or 6 years old. Before I can even say hello, she is telling me and not asking me that her 5 or 6-year-old will be coming into the room regardless of the rules because she doesn't have anyone else who can watch him and her younger child really wants to come in. Now, I politely attempted to explain that I cannot allow that since we take the age rule very seriously due to past issues and we can get written up for allowing bigger kids into the room. Well, this entitled Karen makes a huge show of groaning and rolling her eyes at me and then tells the other child that he can go play somewhere else while she and the other kid under 3 years old comes and plays in the room. Well, this required me to tell her that she cannot have her kids off on their own without her also present. And when I said this, she absolutely lost her mind on me. She said to me, "Every time we come here, I've always been allowed to bring my older child in here with me. No one's ever told us that was a rule before." And she went on and on. I explained to her that if that was true, then my coworkers have made a mistake, and I was fully expected to maintain the age limits on the room. She then gets angrier and angrier and ends up goading her youngest into a full-on crying meltdown by telling him, "This person is saying that you don't get to have fun. If he's not allowing us in, then we have to go straight home because I can't deal with both of you." It all wrapped up with both her kids crying as they're being shoved back into the stroller and the mom storming off, swearing that she was going straight to our admissions desk to report me, and then she was going home to write a review. I asked around later and I found out that she did go to the front desk to complain and was apparently utterly livid when she was told that yes, it sounds like our employees did their job as that room is exclusively for kids 3 years of age and under, and we do require that kids stay with their adults. But unfortunately, she still hasn't left a review though, as I was really looking forward to seeing my name mentioned in the post. Wow, you have to be seriously entitled to act like that in front of your kids. She not only worked those kids up to start crying as some kind of manipulation tactic, in some desperate attempt that you'll give in to her weird demands. Because seriously, she was completely out of line. The fact that she wanted to bend and break the rules, in my opinion, shows that she's not a good mom, and she's just super disrespectful of those around her. And I just love the fact that she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you in trouble, I'm gonna leave a review, and I'm going to complain." But it's like, lady, the original poster literally did their job. They're trying to keep people safe and not get in trouble themselves. And it's also really good that the admissions desk was like, yeah, they did their job. Because I've worked in places where that doesn't happen, where they turn it right back on the employee themselves, and you basically get thrown under the bus for doing your job. So truly, I'm so glad that things worked out for you, and hopefully that lady never comes back ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk makes my coworker cry after he freaks out when he realized he missed a promotion that we were having. So I decided to step in and take over, putting this jerk in his place in a way that he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so this situation happened quite a while ago. I'm working at a small mom and pop hardware store, and it was about 5 minutes before closing, and I was going through the closing routine of the store. But it's right as I'm doing that I hear what's going on in the distance. I hear someone scream, "What do you mean they're not answering?" Now, turning the corner is when I see a larger man yelling at the sales clerk. And this young lady was literally bawling her eyes out. So I walk up to my coworker, I get her attention, and I tell her to go ahead and clock out for the evening as I'm going to take care of this. Well, when I did this rude customer started screaming at me. He said to me, "Hey, where do you think she's going? I'm not done with her." But I responded by saying, "Yes, you are done with her. I'm taking over from here." The rude customer then says, "Oh, you're taking over, are you? What are you going to do about it?" And I just respond by saying, "Absolutely nothing. The credit card special promotion that you're complaining about is over." This customer then freaks out. He says to me, "What? No way, you piece of garbage. It says right here that you have until 5 o'clock p.m. I then say to him, "Yeah, in Eastern Standard Standard Time, and we happen to be in Pacific Time. The credit card company's office that processes applications has been closed for 3 hours. And as a side note, I even had to explain to him what Eastern Standard Time meant. This rude guy then says to me, "So what are you gonna do to fix this then?" I responded by saying, "Well, I told you I'm not gonna do anything. What do you want me to do? Call an employee of that office to tell them to go back and process your application? If you think we're gonna do that, then you've got to be kidding yourself. We are a hardware store, not a credit card processing company." This rude customer then says that he's not leaving until this is fixed. He goes on to say, "This is a public space. I have every right to be here." But I looked at him and said, "Yes, you are leaving as we are closing." And it was at this moment that my coworker walks by with her stuff to go home, and this rude customer decides to go back in on her. He says to her, "Hey, you little jerk, you really messed up." But I reminded him, "Hey, you're talking to me, not to her. And don't you dare talk to her like that." And as for a public space, that's the street. The sidewalk inside this building is private, meaning that we reserve the right to refuse business. Now get out because we're closed. And before this guy could even finish his next sentence, I said to him, "If you don't, there's a police station right across the street, and they'll be here in under a minute to trespass you and escort you out the building. So what's it gonna be?" This guy then looked at me incredibly angry and said to me, "Fine, I'm going, but I'm never shopping here ever again." And when he said that, I just smiled and waved at him. I said to him, "Okay, you have a good day, sir." A little later that evening, I call my coworker to see how she's doing, and thankfully she's doing just fine. She just needed a few minutes away from that guy, and I assure her that he will never come back to that store. I will ask him to leave and for her to not talk to him, and thankfully we haven't had any problems ever since. Okay, that guy's a complete moron because why would he act that way? I can't stand when customers come in and take it out on employees, when special deals or special offers somehow expired without them knowing. Like, buddy, I am not the reason that expired, and I'm definitely not the person who put up that special in the first place. I'm just a worker literally trying to make rent. Like, what's your problem? And it's so telling that this guy's a massive coward because he would rather talk to the young lady that he made cry than someone who actually knew what they were doing and wasn't going to take that crap. Not to mention the fact that he tried to take one last shot at her and be like, "Oh wow, you messed up big time. This is your fault." But it's like, no buddy, this is your fault. You're the reason this all fell apart. So good for you for having your coworkers back, because this jerk absolutely needed to be put in his place. My entitled lazy sister refuses to take care of her dog and is constantly leaving me and my mom with the responsibility of taking care of a pet that she said she would care for. And I'm honestly so annoyed by this behavior that I seriously don't know what to do. So my sister is 25, but she still acts like she's 13. She assumes things will go her way and won't take responsibility when it backfires. You know that when she asks dad to go for a movie or eat out, she will try to get dad to pay for her meal or ticket, even if it was her idea. One time I asked which car I can drive, and my parents said that I should drive our Toyota. Well, she got mad at me when I took the car, because apparently this car had a sticker going to an area that needs that sticker, and without that sticker you have to take a longer route to get where you're going, and apparently my father is supposed to tell me that I should ask all my siblings who's using the car before trying to use it myself. But the thing is that she did not ask my parents if she can use the car, and she never told my parents about the party she was planning to attend, which is what this is all about. She just assumed that people will ask her, and lo and behold, it all backfired, but she still doesn't see it as her fault. Well, last year my sister got a dog, and in my house we had 4 dogs, 3 toy poodles and 1 male Labrador. My dad did something for a friend, and the friend was super grateful, and in return he offered to give my family a dog, and my sister really wanted this female poodle. So now it's 5 dogs in the house. The thing is that my sister can now apparently have her dog breed with another poodle and make money from the breeding program. The dog was only 8 months old when we got her, but the problem is that my sister is a very poor owner and handler. She still goes out with her friends, and she assumes me and my brother can watch the dog. The dog almost broke my laptop by putting its paw on the screen and bringing it down, but my sister said, "Oh, you shouldn't have used it there." One time my parents went out one weekend because my dad's cousin had passed away, and my sister left for a party and did not tell me or my brother about babysitting her dog. She just assumed that I will sleep in my parents' room and will watch the Labrador and her dog in there. But you know what? I just left. And as a result, the poodle peed on my mom's carpet, and my brother sent a photo to my mom. My mom then got so mad at my sister and tried to talk it out when she returned from the funeral, but my sister just walked away from her, and it really pissed my mom off. Now, what I hate so much is that she goes out with friends and stays with them until 2 o'clock in the morning, but she also has this dog that she needs to take care of. And I did tell her that she can hang out with friends and her boyfriend, but can only do it for maybe a maximum of 3 hours. Like, I'm sorry, but your dog needs to be taken care of. But she still does not listen. She doesn't bother to get her dog outside or in mom's room when she returns, returns. Well, the dog last month went into heat, and it was a long weekend in my country. My sister decided to go out for 4 days with her friends, and I did not know this until the day itself. In fact, I only knew when she left. So she just left and never told us how to handle her dog. In contrast, when my mom went out, she would tell the kids what to do if the dog got sick or anything like that. But with my sister, we got nothing. It was really hard controlling her heated dog while the Labrador was going crazy. I mean, my sister wasn't there, and my mom did not understand why she made her trip with her friends so long. It easily could have been 1 day only, but my sister went for 3 nights. And that is when my mom decided to have the dog neutered. She told my sister about it, but my sister said no. But my mom continued with the plan. Well, fast forward, and the female poodle got neutered last Friday. And when that happened, my sister went berserk on my mom and lashed out. The argument lasted for 2 hours, and my sister cried in her room for another 2 hours. She wanted that breeding program to happen, but my mom neutered her dog due to her being a lazy owner. My sister thinks that my mom doesn't want her to see her friends, but all my mom was trying to say is to minimize time with them because she has a dog to train. Anyways, I'm glad it happened to my sister because she is incredibly lazy. Okay, honestly, I think your mom made the best decision for that dog possible. Your sister is a lousy pet owner, and in my opinion, people like her should not be allowed to have pets. It is so inconsiderate that that dog is literally left by itself, and then you and your mom and the rest of your family is somehow expected to pick up the slack when you did not sign up for that. Like at that point, just give the dog back to the friend and be like, sorry, we can't take care of it. So hopefully your sister can grow up and do better as a person, because this kind of behavior is incredibly immature. Entitled customers made my time in customer service an absolute nightmare, and I'm seriously so glad I will never have to deal with these people ever again. So I've worked in customer service in some form for over a decade, and without fault, there's always the niche customer, the one who wants their order, their purchase, their whatever in a very specific manner. The weirdest were always in food service, and it is always the most left field request. If you get it right, they are always sweet as pie, kind as you could ever be. But if you get it wrong, then you definitely are in for it. Now, both of these stories are from my teenage years, so they are pretty old. When I was 16 years old, I worked at a fast food restaurant that is quite famous for its frozen treats. And through that job, there are 2 customers that still stick with me. The first was a man who I dealt with at least once a week in the drive-thru. He always ordered some kind of meal combo and a frozen dessert. He would order his meal by number and would order his frozen dessert, and as he left the speaker, in no more than a regular speaking voice, he would say to put the dessert in a bag. Now, the only bags we had were paper, and they're meant for burgers and fries and so on. They're not meant, however, for the sauce-covered meltable desserts. The lids that fit any given frozen treat were subpar at best, and after maybe 5 minutes, you would have ice cream leaking out the sides and a lovely chilled soup waiting for you. And I knew from seeing this customer every week for years that he would pick this up as his lunch before he would drive 45 minutes to an hour into the city for his evening shift at whatever job he worked at. But if you forgot the bag, no matter how kind and how sweet and apologetic, this guy would still freak out. I mean, God forbid he put the dessert in his own bag himself. I mean, this guy would be livid if you didn't do this for him. I remember this very prominent purple vein would bulge in his forehead like a cartoon. He would yell and question every possible aspect of our abilities to even do our job. Management would then be brought over and more apologies would be given. And even the occasional refund was given as well. And every time over a free and honestly quite useless paper bag that he always ended up getting anyways. Now, the second story is from the same time but with a different customer. While still working primarily, if not exclusively, the drive-thru, we had another niche semi-regular. Now, what made my location in a chain restaurant fairly unique was that we were pretty accommodating to requests for non-menu items. As long as we could charge you for the ingredients, we would make pretty much whatever you wanted. You want a pickle sundae with chocolate fudge? Sure, we can do that. And seriously, that even happened once. We had a regular that was somehow associated with another staff member. They were like their third cousin or little sister's coworker or something like that. And they would come in, usually in phases, with some new request of some kind. For a month straight, it would be a large sundae layered with very specific toppings to mirror a dessert that they saw on TV. Then it would switch to a new milkshake of whatever flavor combination that they could possibly think of. Now granted, I will give it to the customer. They never complained about price before this incident. However we figured out how to charge them, they would pay it so long as it was reasonable. But there was the usual confusion with the custom orders of how to charge them in the first place. Do we use this menu item as a base and charge them for the extra toppings? We were never really totally sure what to do. This all came to a head when they decided they wanted what they described as a deconstructed dessert, but it was in essence a cup of various candies candies we use as toppings, with ice cream being used as the topping. Think of how you get whipped cream on hot chocolate at the cafe. Now, my location actually did have a price for a cup of candy that we could charge for, but it was about double the cost of any dessert that this woman had gotten before just as the cup of candy, and the adding of sauce and ice cream. So imagine that maybe her regular dessert was like maybe $5 or $8, because in contrast, she was being charged about $16 for this, which was the best that we could do, even with asking the supervisor on duty. Now, did I mention if we had trouble ringing her in for these weird requests, or even, God forbid, messed up the layers of her stupidly complex and ever-changing sundae were dictated to be, she would then throw an absolute major fit. Think honking, refusing to leave the drive-thru, screaming for a manager. Like, this lady would lose it. Because I worked drive-thru so much, and I became quite good at interpreting her visions for the food, I ended up dealing with her a lot. In the rare shift that I wasn't placed in the drive-thru, they would call me over anyways just to deal with her because I understood what she wanted. I watched her make multiple trainees cry and was often the one called over to deal with her if they messed up an order. I even had supervisors texting me when I was at school asking me how I would make or charge what she was asking for. But anyways, back to the cup of candy monstrosity. As you can probably guess, she was outraged. How on earth could it be so expensive? Well, because you asked for the most expensive candy topping as the base, and you wanted it in this size. But it's basically what she wanted, but just deconstructed. So it's like, okay, based on the fact that you wanted it to be a majority of the candy, and expensive candy to boot, it is this flat price for a cup of candy. And then adding charge for sauce and ice cream, I mean, if you really wanted a truly deconstructed treat, you would get a cup of ice cream and maybe like 2 tablespoons of candy, and a little pump of syrup that would barely fit a ketchup cup. But regardless of all of this, she just lost it. She screamed, she swore, she banged her fists on the steering wheel. She asked me how dare I do this to her, how she had been a loyal customer for years. She was so upset that it got to a point that I, the so-called champion of dealing with her, had to call over a manager. She demanded a refund for the item that she had not bought yet and continued to lose her mind, not to mention the fact that she's blocking the drive-thru. To make a long story short, she ended up getting banned. Maybe partially because if I wasn't dealing with her, she usually had her order refunded and given whatever she asked for free if we made any mistakes on it. But also, it might come down to the fact that she made so many employees cry. But I seriously think that mostly it was because I was the last person that they had that would be willing to deal with her entitled self. But in the end, she was banned, and we didn't see her for quite some time. We heard from the employee that she was associated with that she had been going to other locations, but none of them were as accommodating as us for off-menu requests. And she apparently got banned from a number of other places for pulling the same stuff. Eventually, she started seeing her roommate, and she would bring in a slip of paper and hand it to us. We knew it was this crazy woman's new order, but I, and I'm not sure how many others, would take it and charge it as we saw fit. We never heard another complaint, and I honestly feel bad for the roommate, as she got sent for food a lot, and she didn't seem to be treated well when I used to see her with a crazy woman. But thankfully, we didn't have any issues after that. Wow, I honestly know exactly what this person's talking about when they've had to deal with crazy customers who are just insane. Like, I've dealt with my fair share of like Karens and other people who are just irrational, and let me tell you something, nothing is ever good enough. Like, you can literally do everything right, and you can miss one singular detail, and then they will lose their mind. They freak out, they go crazy, and then it's all your fault. Like, it's not their fault that they have unreasonable demands, it's your fault that you didn't get it exactly the way they wanted it. So truly, I've seen both cases like this in my time in customer service, and people who act like this are seriously some of the worst people you will ever have to deal with. My entitled father-in-law suggested that he sees me as a green card for his son, as opposed to a valuable family member, and at this point, I feel so offended that I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I met my fiance 2 years ago, and for us, it's just instant love. He's Korean and I'm white, so we do have a bit of a cultural difference. Besides that, the only real problem that we have is that my fiance had to go back to South Korea to renew a visa, and sadly, he got denied. So we proceeded with the K1 fiance visa since we met all the requirements, and our immigration lawyer advised us it would be good for us. We got approved, and his interview is September 12th. Then he'll come back to New York in October. It's been really hard with the long distance, but luckily I got to visit him in Korea for 2.5 weeks. On a side note, his parents are very wealthy, and I love and respect his parents, but they get under my skin. During this trip, my father-in-law made comments about my diet and how I need to eat healthier. We only shared meals together a few times, and when we do, we all eat the same thing, but I just eat a smaller portion. I'm also 4'11", and I weigh about 118 pounds, pounds, but I was recently diagnosed with high blood pressure. My dad has it, so it's part of my genes. But my father-in-law doesn't get the part that it's genetics, and he's been making rude comments this whole time that I'm here. There's been other things that he said that just get under my skin, but I simply don't have the time to list them all. During lunch, he told me that he's so lucky that his son found me so that he has easy access to the United States. I was confused and I asked him what he meant, and he said, "It's so hard to get into the United States, but now because of you, he has full access to the US." So I just took it that his father sees me as an easy way for his son to get a green card. And it took a lot for me not to start crying at that moment. My father-in-law also went on a rant that I need to learn Korean and that he expects his grandchild to know Korean as well. While I understand that it is important, my fiance and I are not there yet. He also made rude comments about how my fiance had changed his major from aviation to data science. And I've been hearing those comments since last December. It's like they never tell his son any of this, but they tell me instead. He then once again went off by saying how much money they lost due to the career change, and I told him, okay, I get that you lost money, and I won't understand that, but I just want your son to do whatever makes him happy. But right now, I just don't know if I'm being used for a green card. The love I have for my fiance is so unconditional, and I know how much he loves me. I can feel the love, and I never felt love like that before. But I'm really curious what other people think, because right now, I really don't know what to do. Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would tell my fiance what was just said to me. Like, your father-in-law is completely out of line, and that is so horrible to imply. I would express that to my fiance and be like, look, this is how your father-in-law is basically talking to me, and I don't like what's happening right now. But regardless, if you really do love your fiance, then I would ignore this man with everything you have in you, because clearly he's just some weird entitled jerk, and you do not need his weird behavior in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.